Hello. I was just answering an email. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. It was great to see that so many people already submitted their assignments. And I think our new system is going to work better for Mr. Berman because he won't have to open up your individual folders one by one. They're all in the same place. So I know Zoe and Minvin and Jack, you all submitted yours. Great, thank you. There's Minvin. It sure was warm today. There were lots of, I live downtown and I went for a walk close to Westcliff, not on Westcliff. And there's just so many people out, their surfboards and.
It was beautiful, if not a little bit troubling, that this is what middle of January looks like.
Oh, yeah, it's troubling because we need rain. And it's troubling because so many people came from out of town and they're not supposed to. Hello, hello. Anais, Sophia, Sophie, Jake. Who's this thing? Sierra. Wow, cool image. Hunter Reed. Technically, we have 3 hunters in this set, but we have alternate names for some of them. Thank you, everybody, for turning in your assignments. I think most of you, like a majority of you, turned them in, which is fantastic. I know Mr. Berman will be happy. And 1 or 2 of the Avital siblings is here, which is great. I see their dad's name, so I don't know which one. But they weren't sure they could make it tonight, so that's great. Okay. Chloe. Okay, Amir can't come, but Adi is here. And Sophie, you have a question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Why don't you ask that question to Mr. Berman? Because he's
I
more.
asked him and he said it was already shared with me, but like when I clicked on the link, it said it was restricted for all of my emails.
All right, well, let's talk afterwards because it's hard for me to think while I'm
Thank you.
watching all the arrivals here. I'll make a note to email you afterwards.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Ah.
Good evening. Good to see you. Okay, we'll get started. So we'll play tonight, so make sure you have your instrument handy. And the other thing is to, hopefully you got my email this afternoon, because in the second half of this meeting, we'll work on the improvisation project that I mentioned, and it'll be good for you to be able to play online during that time, obviously on mute, just working on some ideas for what we'll do with that project. But first, what I'd like to do is get into Brahms for this week. So first of all, thank you to everyone who has already submitted your music for Brahms for the first section that we worked on from the beginning to letter B. And I just wanted to put it out there first. did any of you have any technical issues that you want to talk about, or questions that came up in terms of how to submit your work? Because that's really one of the hardest things that we're dealing with right now is just getting the music in and figuring out how to turn it into the Google Drive. So I just want to ask you, anyone have issues with that? Feel free to either chat or come off mute. Sebastian, please.
This wasn't specifically for like turning in my work, but basically I was having sound problems. So when I was like when I was trying to play the track so that I could record, it started sounding really muffled and kind of like a robot. And I took out the headphones and I shut it down completely and I restarted my laptop and I tried to use a different pair of headphones and it worked, but then I paused it and I played it again and then it started sounding like a robot again. So I eventually managed to get it to work by using a third pair of headphones, but I only played it once, so I don't really know if anybody else had that, but I've never really had that happen to me before.
That's really strange. So there are two possibilities. One is that the headphones were the issue, but it doesn't sound like that's the problem because you listened back to it and it sounded okay, and then it was when you came back to it somehow that it sounded not as good. So there are, if the headphones are the potential problem, there's one approach that you can use, which is that BandLab both through you were using your phone originally. Is that what you said, Sebastian?
No, I was using my computer, but the same thing happened when I disconnected the headphones. So I was like, oh, I'll take the headphones out. And even when I was using my speaker with my computer, the robot sound was still there.
You want to try from the computer?
Sorry, what? What was that? Yeah, sorry, someone spoke up and I didn't catch what was said. Okay, so what I would say is there, if you don't use headphones, there's a problem automatically because there has to be headphones in order to not hear the click. So if you're recording directly to the computer without headphones, you'll be hearing the accompaniment while you record. So that would be an issue because we need to receive only the sound of your instrument. Did you, when you heard the part that you had recorded after you didn't use headphones, did you also hear the background recording?
I didn't record when the headphones were disconnected.
Definitely needs to be louder.
Experiment.
But this time I'm just sticking with it.
Hey, Rio, I think Rio or Jaden, I think you guys are off mute, so just be careful of that, please. Yeah, I see Min Vin's hand raised, but Sebastian, I've noted your question and we're going to circle back to it. Min, go ahead.
Yeah, I had the same issue with the robot noise and the I use Bluetooth headphones, so and I record on my computer now too. So what I did, I put the microphone, so the microphone was then my computer and not in the microphone from my headphones anymore, and that for some reason worked. So if your headphones are not both recording and playing the music.
Yeah, that could be a solution. Sebastian, did you happen to try that?
For some reason, the robot sound was coming up for me even before I recorded, so it was just when I was listening to the original track. But I was using Bluetooth headphones, and I switched to a different pair of Bluetooth headphones, and the robot sound was still there. And this was all before I recorded, and same with the speaker. So I used a pair of wired headphones, and that did work, but maybe it was the Bluetooth.
So you're saying you heard it before you recorded. Could you? I'm sorry, everyone. I know this is like a little bit of a side note, but let's follow it. What are you talking about when you were listening to the recording that you're supposed to be playing to? There was some sort of sound that you didn't expect and that was distracting.
Yeah, I mean, in the MIDI recording, it sounded like a robot speaking, but it was music.
Oh gosh. Okay. Um, That sounds different than what Min was talking about.
No,
Were
actually,
you
no,
able?
it's exactly the same. Sorry, Mr. Berman. I didn't
Yes,
mean to
please.
interrupt, but it's exactly that what happened to me as well. When I tried to listen to the MIDI, it was just some sounds, noise, and then I just switched the microphone from headphone to laptop, and then it was
Okay.
over.
In that case, let me just quickly describe what Min did, because Sebastian, I don't know if you were still able to record something that you felt okay about, but let me just do a share. I'm quickly looking at the chat here. Avery, I see your question, and I will respond to you. Okay, let me just do a quick share here. So let's say you are in BandLab and you're doing your Brahms. What Min did to, I guess, deal with this issue was to change the input that he was using for his recording. And I don't know exactly why this would be a difference maker, but maybe it will be for you, Sebastian. So you would, in order to change this, you're going to go to, this is the interface that you would have seen if you're recording on your computer, right? So in your lower left, the very far left, is source. And here it's saying default external microphone. I think it's actually using my my headphone microphones, which I'm speaking into now. But if you go to MacBook Pro microphone built in, that might be the difference maker that Min is talking about. And maybe there's some sort of feedback loop that doesn't work if you're using the first option. But try changing these options from this menu, Sebastian, right? Source menu, going up here to the input and changing to one of the other options. Instead of default, using the MacBook Pro microphone or whatever it would say about your own input for your computer, and see if that makes a difference. But let me just ask you, Sebastian, were you able to make a recording that you thought was viable? I haven't listened yet.
Yeah, I did manage to make a recording, but I think I will redo it. And I'll take that advice. So thank you.
Okay. So please, when you do it again, if it is the same issue, just get in contact with me and let's see if we can find a way to work it out, because that's no fun to try to work through that. Okay. Well, thank
Okay,
you so much.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Oh, okay. Sophie, I saw your response, so thank you. Okay. So at least 2/3 of you finished the first Brahms recording. Thank you for that. Maybe more of you did it right before the meeting, and so I don't know that. But I just want to address one thing, which is that we simply have to have submissions, because if we fall behind, it's going to be increasingly difficult to complete our repertoire this quarter. So I would just ask you all, like, very kindly and sincerely, if you have problems submitting on a given week, please contact me so I understand what's going on, especially if there's some issue that keeps you from submitting successfully like Sebastian had. And I really appreciate, Sebastian, that you worked through that. But let's just keep in touch about that, because it's so crucial. Like this first week was just like 1 minute of music, and I'm not trying to say it was easy, but it was certainly like much easier than a lot of the rep that we normally play. So it was just kind of a test week to make sure that our system was functioning. So this isn't going out so much to those of you who are new to the group. If you had issues, get in touch with me. If you have done this before, let's put it like in frank terms. We have to have submissions, or we can't do what we're doing. And I'm going to try to keep my expectations reasonable for everyone week by week. But if we can't have submissions, it just won't work. So I'm asking you, please try your best. And I'm going to ask you for a little bit more this week, in fact. So let's see how that goes. And I'm actually perfectly fine to receive your feedback, like if it's too much, if it's difficult, whatever. Um, you can let me know if it's just too much to ask. And that's really fine because then I can kind of understand over the course of the set what's good to expect, what works, and what doesn't. But this week we'll have two assignments. One I think will be extremely easy musically and a little bit more technologically hard. The other one fairly straightforward in terms of how to do it technologically, especially for those of you from last quarter. And then just a little bit more uh, time in terms of the music that I'm asking. Okay, so let's get into it. So what I want to do is two things today. One is look at Brahms, the next section that we're about to work on, which is a medium section about 2 minutes long of music, and it is the first kind of larger section of the Brahms, and we're going to actually end up playing it twice. And the reason is that the way that this editor has interpreted the piece has been to put in a repeat that Brahms didn't originally have. I made reference to this last week, where instead of doing the original form, which was playing straight through, but the first material came back, this editor had the same material come back the second time with a repeat sign. And so I'm handling that in a certain way where I'm asking you the second time we play it to do it slightly faster, just so that there's a variation there, because actually in classical and romantic music, and we're playing romantic music now in Brahms, there is a tradition of repeating the exposition of a piece, meaning the first part of the piece where the themes are repeated, so that, or rather where the themes are exposed, and then generally repeated so that you understand kind of what's the meat of the piece. So we'll play that today, sort of what we could consider maybe the exposition of the piece. How many of you, by raise of hands, and there's no shame here, how many of you have practiced into the piece, into the Brahms, far enough that you've gotten to where the repeat sign happens? You can either physically raise your hand or do it through Zoom. Okay, looks like about a third of us. So I think that's okay. I don't. You can put your hands down now. Thank you. I. It's not terribly challenging in this arrangement, but it's hard, and it's something that will be a big step for us this week. And so what I'd like to do is practice it a little bit online right now. So I'll ask you please to get up your music for Brahms, and let's do a little bit of online practice. While you're getting up your music, please also, if you haven't already, warm up and tune your instrument. Okay, everyone. You'll see I just pasted something into the chat. You can ignore that for now. It's the same thing that I wrote into the email that I sent to you today. We'll get to that later, and you can scroll back to it just to make reference to it. It has nothing to do with the work we're about to do. Okay, so what I would like to do is start where we left off at the end of this last week's recording, which is letter B. And this is the famous tune from the finale of Brahms 1. And anyone who's played in orchestras for their life will be able to sing this tune for you. It's, last week I referred to how this is kind of almost in many people's mind a reference to the Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Fourth Movement, and Brahms sort of acknowledged that as well. So it's a simple melody, but so universal and so dignified and joyful and wonderful. What's really important here is those of you playing the main melody. It starts out in the first violins, and then later, so first violins, and then later in the upper woodwinds. Sorry, I'm just turning on my piano to get pitch reference. Something like da 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 just as I say, really universal and sort of it's simple. It's almost classical, although this is a romantic symphony. Classical in the sense that it feels fairly symmetrical and regular at first, until the third phrase when it starts to go on longer. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 da, gaining momentum towards what will eventually be the entrance of the woodwinds, and later towards this kind of big outburst in the whole orchestra. So everybody, there needs to be vibrato. Well, I'll say strings specifically. There needs to be vibrato in everything, including lower strings who are playing pits. So as you're playing this sort of, all of those, bum, 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 bum. Every note with sustain. So we don't just get a thin sound here, but a really ringing sound. Okay, so let's play this together from letter B, and let's go up to, we'll say, even though it starts to change a little bit to the previous material, let's go up through the fermata that is after C. And I'm not going to count the measures, but that's probably about 24 or so measures after C, okay? So we're starting from letter B, and I'm going to play this through BandLab to you online, and I've slowed it down so it won't be the actual tempo, but it will be about 85% of the tempo. Okay, so you'll get 4 clicks in, and then we'll be right on. Let me just make sure this is clear. Let me play it one time just so we know. I'm going to share now. Don't come in this time out. This is just to make sure that we are clear on where we're starting together. Oh, sorry, I lost my place in the recording. Let me just re-find it. I think this is it. So no need to play just now. Just let's find out where we are. Great, yeah. So you'll hear 1, 2, 3, and then it's the pickup to B. 1, 2, 3, pick up to B. Here we go. Please play along while you listen on the headphones. I'll turn this up as loud as I can, and afterwards you can let me know how it is in terms of the volume level. Here we go. Ready, and... Comes bassoon. Second clarinet. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I think I misspoke when I said the thing about the fermata. I'm sorry. I'm looking at this on an iPad and I turned the wrong page. So we had just gotten to D, essentially, and that's where I've just stopped. Um, this is all like music that I think most people find very easy to play technically. So the crucial things are phrasing and um, and tone, right? I guess I would say also an intonation. Phrasing, tone, and intonation. Oh, Xander just mentioned a misprint. 13 measures after B. I'm glad you brought that up, Xander. Thank you. Let me find that. Is that where you're playing pizzicato?
It is the bar after a sforzando that we have.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
while we're playing the melody.
Okay.
It might just be in the first violin part and not the score, maybe.
I think that might be the case. Is that where you play G, D, E, F, G, D, E? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Right. So, yeah, if your two last notes are quarter notes, that is absolutely wrong. And they should be eights on G and D. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Sandra. I didn't know about that, so I appreciate that. Okay. So the other, I guess, general sort of instruction I'd say is think in two. And this is so crucial for most music that is written like this, that's sort of a la breve, in other words, feeling at the half note. Da dee da dee da da dee da 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 dee da dee. So hopefully you can feel how as I sing that, there's the emphasis on the downbeat and a slightly less emphasis on the second beat, and definitely no emphasis on the offbeat. Da dee da dee da da dee da dee da dee da dee. You should feel in a larger beat here, 100%, and that's even true for those of you playing the pits. Bum bum bum, bum bum beam, bum bum beam, bum bum beam, bum bum. Right. So ta ti ta, ta ti ta. Ta, ti, ta. Okay, let's try the same thing one more time, just playing from the beginning of B to D. Let me just rewind. And here we go. Ready, and... Soon. Second clarinet. First clarinet. Flutes, trombone one. Okay, and then we're at D. So one last thing to note about this section is before D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's this forzando on the second beat. And that's the same thing as 1, 2, 3, 4 before C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 5 before C, this forzando on the second beat. Those are not a big, intense, punchy accent. Those are more of a blossoming but warm accent. So you're playing da dee dum ba da dum. Okay, so the biggest part of the accent is not the very beginning of the note, it's just one moment after the note. Da dee dum ba da dum, as opposed to ba be, right? This is not a kind of like, like I guess an accent that would come from like jazz or something. It's more the blossoming accent where you should feel a moment after the note is where you hit the forte of the sforzando. So sforzando is Italian for forced, and so that's basically telling you more emphasis on the note. But in this case, for the romantic music, just a little bit blossoming. Okay, let's look at D. So this is where most of the orchestra, if all of the orchestra really is playing. The percussion comes in at D. And it's just a little more detached here. T, 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 bum, beam, bum, ba. So all these accents that you see, so I'll say, for example, after D, 1, 2, 3 bars after, or 4 bars after D, those have separation. Those are not legato, definitely. Okay? So that's off, 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 bum. Definitely we want the sense that there's separation there. The sforzandos on the offbeat 8th notes are the most important note in the measure. So as you play D, da dee da dee dum ba da da dum ba da da dum, no emphasis on the downbeat. Ba da da dum ba da da dum ba da da dum. Okay, we don't want ba da da dum ba da da dum ba da da dum. We want the emphasis on the second beat, and the downbeat is de-emphasized. With that in mind, let's start at D. Give me a second to cue this up, please. So don't play while I cue this up. I'm just going to find it. Okay, I'm going to start this as you're hearing basically 2-bar pickup into D. You'll hear da da dee da da D. Okay, here we go. 2 bars before D, entering when you feel comfortable. Here we go. Here's D, ready, and now. 2, 5. Okay, I've stopped just as we've gotten to F. Let it go on for a little while. Specifically for you in the strings, how is it practicing at this tempo? Are you comfortable?
I'm feeling pretty comfortable. There's just one tricky spot with during the 8th notes with fingering because it's all together, but only that one tricky spot.
Sure. Is that the
It's like the
moment like 6 before F or something?
Actually before that, like 6 after D, 1, 2, 3. The second where it goes high up.
Oh, right. Dee da dee da 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 dee da da da. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Guirosu. So, I mean, that'll come with a little bit more practice. If it's not horribly awkward, I'll continue at this tempo. Basically, what I'm asking is this tempo okay for us to practice together online? Um, yeah. So let's so obviously like the main melody from B to D is not terribly challenging. Let's focus on D onward. So you can hear and from the MIDI that the emphasis here is dee da dee da be da dee da ba da da ba da da da. Groups of four with the offbeat accent the most important note. Be da 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 ba da 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 ba da 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 bum bim bum be da da do da ba da da ba da da ba da da dum. So that's what we want to focus on right now is finding the emphasis on that eighth note. And let's play it again, and then I'm going to ask, and we'll just see if anyone feels okay about it. I'll ask if anyone feels comfortable in the strings playing that figure. Okay, so let's go back to D again one more time for some more practice. I'm just going to share audio only because there's not much point in my sharing the screen for this exercise. Let me just play this to remind myself for sure that I'm in the right place. Okay, so we're going to be 2 bars before D once again. Here we go. Preparing for D. Here we go. 2, 2, ready, and D. Okay, and there we are at F. Lots for the first to do, lots for the seconds and violas to do as well. I think winds, you have it a little easier here, but that said, brass, trombones, as you're playing this upward thing, that is quite a challenge to play well in tune. So there we want a pretty warm sound for you trombones and not too heavy or forward. It's not pa pa pa, it's tu ta ti ta ti. That idea ta ta ti ta ti. Lots of breath, the tongue not overly heavy, okay? On that. Does that make sense, trombones? It's a little hard for you guys, Jack and Nathan, lower register because that's quite low. And it's hard to articulate well down there. Do you have an idea what to do with that?
I mean, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I get what you're saying and going for, but it'll just be a matter of practicing it and trying some different techniques out.
Yeah. Use lots of breath and a light tongue, and see if you can warm up well in the low register, so you get the early articulation in the low register that's not either late or overly accented. And then don't overthink it. I mean, if it just do the best that you can, and if it comes out a little too accented or not articulating perfectly, it's fine. Just try as best you can, because that's a tricky bit. It's actually maybe a little easier for the first trombone because it goes into a register that's more manageable in terms of articulation. Okay, woodwinds in this section from D to E. I've already mentioned about the melody that some of you in the flutes are doubling in the strings. Ti da 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 ta ti ta Ti ta ti ta. But clarinets, bassoons, trumpets, the quarter notes fairly detached. For example, after D, or even in the bar of D, ti ta ti ta. It's not ti ta ti ta. Here we're a little bit more detached, and you can write that in your part. Just it's not staccato. It's just with some space. Ti ta ti ta 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 ti ta ta ti ta. Right? It's a little more separate and detached there. Okay, so now we're in the last section that we'll play this week at F. Here we have triplets. Triplets are one of the trickiest bits that we do as we work online, because I feel that as we're hearing click, 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 click from the metronome, it's really pretty straightforward to play quarter notes and eighth notes, but to play click, 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 ti ta 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 ti right in time is a real challenge. So I commend to you practicing triplets first, making sure that they fit in exactly straight, because we're not playing together where some massaging of the triplets can work, right? We're playing a little bit, well, we're not playing a little bit, we're playing completely separately. And so we need to take these triplets rather literally. One and a, two and a, dee da, doo da, dee da, dee da, doo da. So listen to the way they're rendered in the MIDI and try to play them with great evenness. Let me find our section at F here so that we can get oriented to that. Give me a second here, because I'm going to play this a couple of times just to make sure I am where I want to be. Okay, so here's 2 bars before F. Ready, and F. Second bar. Okay, so first thing to point out, as you finish the note at the repeat, you cut off on the 4th beat, and then you get a count in to the repeat. Let me just play that for you. 1, 2, 3, repeat. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You cut off on the 4th beat, and then you get 1, 2, 3, and then you're at the pickup to B. Okay, I think it would be worthwhile to write that into your part. You know, you could, at the end of that note that you have at the DS, you could write cut off for 3 clicks into B, or 3 clicks into the pickup of B, something like that. Let me see if I can find that place at F again. I wish I'd written down the measure. Okay, got it. Let's take it again at 2 bars before F, or approximately 2 bars before F. So note that F strings, well, upper strings and violas, you have yum, bum, bum, beam, bum, bum, bum. So these are a little bit more detached. Yum, bum, bum, beam, bum, bum, bum. Oh, sorry, it's just the first 3 notes, so a little bit more detached. Dee da, dee da, dee. Yeah. I'm sorry, actually, I just misspoke that. I think that's espressivo. I think it's a little not clear in the MIDI. I'm so sorry I misspoke. That should actually be connected even though it's separate. Dee da dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da. So those quarter notes, the bar of F, forget what I said about them being detached. They are more connected. Sorry about the confusion. And if they're played more detached in the MIDI, that's really my mistake. Traditionally, those are connected. Okay, here's 2 bars before F, everybody. And we'll play to where the DS comes in. And then I'll play in through the repeat so you have the idea how it goes back to B. So actually do play the first couple of notes at B so you know how it connects. Here's 2 before F approximately. Ready, and F. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, off. 1, 2, 3, and B. Okay. Does that connection make sense to everyone? And are there any questions about how that connection works? In other words, the connection back to the repeat. Okay. The last thing I'll say about this is that, and I've said this last quarter, but I'll say it again. In the MIDI rendering that I've created, you have very little musicality. And so it's up to you to bring the musicality for your part. So that, especially obtains to playing the main melody. Dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee. Finding the vibrato and the tone that you want to create on your string or your wind instrument. And then that especially the point that I want to make particularly is in MIDI, it's really hard without better skills than I have in creating these to make a difference between piano and forte sections. So the parts that are supposed to be really soft in the MIDI are not particularly soft. So when you see piano, please respond by playing softer. Okay, use all your, all your powers of musicality to respond to what you're seeing in the score as much or more than what you're hearing in the MIDI. The MIDI is just a tool for tuning and I suppose for getting us together rhythmically. So I want to just check in with you. What I would like to do this week is to do a larger section of the piece in terms of the recording. And we're talking about 2 minutes of music, most of which is fairly straightforward and some of which is a little more challenging, like the part that Rehearsal pointed out. Can we please record this week from the beginning of letter B to the repeat sign? I'm asking you all if that feels reasonable to you and if you'll be able to do that this week. Practicing it and recording it with the MIDI recording that you've been provided.
Sure.
Okay, I see 2 thumbs up and some approval. I'm really open to people saying that seems kind of hard. And what I really want is to understand that that's going to be okay for you or not as we ask you to record by this Sunday. Anybody feel that it's a little intimidating? Yeah, Zoe, it definitely is more than last week. Okay, so here's a little bit of a sneak preview. The next week, we'd just be doing exactly the same material again, but slightly faster. So having prepared it already, you'll just be doing it again, just a little bit faster. And I'm going to ask that the second time through is going to have a little separate nuance that I'll talk about next week. Okay? So essentially 2 weeks in a row, you're going to be doing the same material. That doesn't mean that your assignment won't be due this week, but it does mean that the following week you'll be doing exactly the same thing. So 2 weeks in a row, we'll have sort of the same material. Yeah, and so to answer a question, yeah, Hannah, you understand already what I'm saying, but I'm going to just clarify. Yes, you play through to the repeat and stop. It's a perfect place to stop because that way, when we count in from the rest, it's very easy for me to. Actually, it's going to be a friend of the U Symphony who's mixing this particular piece. It's very easy to start again because we have silence already. It's a built-in good place to start. And then the fourth week that we'll work on the coda of the piece, and that'll be our final section of the piece. So the goal is to record this entire piece in 4 weeks. I think because there's that huge repeat where we play the same thing twice, that should be pretty reasonable. Okay. I believe in you, everyone. We're going to do it. And then we'll get to the cowl piece that... Sorry. We'll get to the cowl piece that will be really fun to work on as well, and a totally different experience. All right. Thank you. Good work. Any separate concerns about what we just worked on, just let me know. I do want to ask one more time, especially for our new players, but for any of you, is there any question about the process of recording and submitting these parts? Let's talk about that now, because this is our ideal moment early in the quarter. So you should have right now access to, oh, sorry, Jerry points out the fourth rehearsal would be sectionals. That's fine. So in the fifth rehearsal, we'll record the last part of the piece, and that's fine. My mistake there. Although, having said that, I might just give you a separate assignment to record after the week of sectionals, the fourth part, and that is more likely to be what happens. Okay. Yeah, to repeat, just because someone asked me to clarify, your assignment this week is to record from letter B, from the pickup to letter B, through the repeat sign. Okay? Not including the second repeat, just from the beginning letter B through the repeat sign and stop. Okay, so as I was saying, you receive the MIDI from me, and if you don't have the MIDI already, I think someone asked earlier about how to receive it. Please make sure that I understand that. Either direct message me or even better, email me, because I don't always see every message that comes by on Zoom. But you should have the MIDI from me that renders all but the very end of Brahms, and that's what you're recording to, and then you're submitting to me a WAV file from BandLab. Okay, there's no problem if you ever need to contact me about tech issues. Just let me know, because it is confusing. Okay, let's switch over to this other project that I'm going to have us get started on this week. So this is the second assignment for this week, and I just got a message from someone about connecting to the project. Yes, I didn't send this out directly. What I did was ask you to take it from me. So I'm typing in right now, just one second, into the chat. My BandLab username. And you can find me at that username. Just in BandLab, search that username, and then look for the Brahms project. And then you can take the Brahms project from my account. Okay? So just look up at BooBook, an Australian owl. I admire owls. And then when you go to my account, find the Brahms project. And when you click on it, there should be an option to fork the project, which means to take a little separate version of the project for yourself. And so those of you having any problems doing that, email me separately, please. Like if you are encountering issues with how to do that, it's no issue. Like just let me know and I'll guide you through it. Okay. So question, are we sending the BandLab to the Brahms drive this time too? That's correct. You send it to the Google Drive under the Brahms project with a label of what area it is. So this week you'll say, I would say, Nathaniel B, Brahms, B through repeat, something like that. Okay. So we're going to embark on some improvisations this quarter like we did last quarter, but responding to what you guys requested last quarter, which is kind of like more collaboration and more work with each other, what I wanted to do is do something similar to what I'm doing with my UC groups this set, which is to ask you to do more group improvisations. And so the way we're going to do that is I've created some improv tracks for you guys. This first one is a very super simple one where we're going to work on doing improv through looping. And what we're going to work towards is actually doing a collaboration. And I guess this is kind of an announcement, but I'm excited about it, with Hannah Kuo. And so Hannah is a really good electronic musician and is actually preparing some tracks with not only like chord progressions, but beats for you guys, so that in groups we will work on doing improvisations over the chord progressions and beats that she creates. But what I wanted to start with this week is a super basic, simple idea for improvisation that works around looping, which means playing a short segment that you then extend through the process of looping in BandLab to go the full distance of a piece. So in this project, you will literally create only a few seconds of music, but then you will loop it, and that will be part of the project. Okay, so because I've given you a big Brahms section to work on, I wanted this to be easy. So where this is technically a little bit harder because you're going to have to go through a process, the musical section of it will be, as I said, quite literally a couple of seconds. Let's start with this. We all are familiar with playing concert C major scales. So regardless of whether your instrument is in C and you play concert C, or your instrument is B flat, you play concert D, or your instrument is F and you play concert, oh goodness, not G, but sorry, C, right? Sorry. B flat. You are going to just play in the key of concert C. And so let me play for you the track that I'd like to use for this improvisation. And what I'd like you to do is just while I play it, and this is basically just simple, or maybe not so simple, but sort of pretty major and seventh chords that are all in the key of C. And I just encourage you to play either a C major scale or improvise simple melodies in C major. But the point to realize here is that while this is playing, everything you play in the key of C major, every note you play in the key of C major scale is basically fine. Okay, so take your instrument, and this is a 2-minute little segment, and I'd like you to just play along however you like, just to feel how it is to play against this backdrop of kind of moody chords. So. All right, I'm about to play it. This is a very slow tempo of 60 beats per minute, and here it goes. You can join in whenever you want.
You're muted, Mr. Berman.
Sorry about that. I said, can you tell that I'm an 80s kid from that sound that I was using? It's definitely like straight out of, I don't know what, the Breakfast Club and whatnot. But it's also a nice sustaining instrument and a nice kind of like mood to play to. So I hope you enjoy just doing a little bit of improv with that. I'm going to quickly demonstrate something which I did this afternoon just in a very quick amount of time as a way of showing kind of what you can do with various tracks here. So let me reshare with video. So I'm not saying this is some masterpiece. In fact, it definitely isn't. But this afternoon I just played in some tracks here into this with my trumpet with a harmon mute. So what you can do with BandLab is create these looping bits, and here you can see that I've made loops that are anywhere from like are these really 4 measures long? That doesn't seem. Well, I guess that is what it is. Sorry, let me just play this. Yeah, I guess it is. So here, you see here that this dark section is separate from everything that comes afterwards. This is one phrase that I played. And then I looped it, and looped it, and looped it again, etc. Here's a much longer phrase that I played. Second loop, third loop, same idea, second loop, third loop there. These, I guess, worked out to be the same length. This one was shorter. So let's just kind of hear how this works. Here's the second track that I played. Or the first track, I guess I should say, that I added. So you can hear it just starts repeating, right? Here's the third track that I played. And then it repeats. Yeah, forgive my tone, everyone. I have not played trumpet much at all these last 2 years. So you kind of get the idea. Rather than just playing each one of these individually, let me play them all together and just kind of note how the way they repeat irregularly means that the way that these go together shifts, okay? So this is only this long, repeats here, this is this long, repeats here, repeats here. All of a sudden, everything sounds different every single time it repeats. Check it out. This is the point of this is kind of what I'm going to ask you to do together. Okay, so you get the idea. this, and this is the only original material in this whole piece, right? This whole section that you see right here is all that I played, which is probably like 40 seconds of music at the most. But what it does is, because it repeats against itself at different times, you get something that sounds really atmospheric and nice, arguably. Okay. Jaden and Rio couldn't hear that. And also, Nathan, were you able to hear that eventually? Anybody else have trouble hearing what I just played?
I heard it.
Anyone who is not using headphones might have struggled with it a little bit more. So that might be why, because I don't know how well this stuff comes over like as I'm doing shared audio. Jerry, could you hear it okay? Thanks, Hannah. I don't really know how to account for all of that. Did you hear utter silence, Ben? Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't know how to explain that. I'm going to push forward though, because we're going to run short on time. So what I want you to do now is just do a process with me where we learn how to do what I just did as a group. Okay, so first of all, and some of you will already kind of understand how to do this, but I really would like to go through the step-by-step process. So if you will rewind in the chat, please find which group you're in. At 6:33 p.m. in the chat, I uploaded this to the chat in Zoom. So if you just go back and look, you'll see which group you're in. I did this totally randomly. I literally uploaded it to an internet randomizer. So please just note which group you're in. Can I paste it again? Let's see if it's still copied. That would make it easier. So I just repasted it. Okay, so after you take note of which group you're in, please pick up your device you're using for BandLab, or open another browser window if you're just using your computer, and open the BandLab app, or go to bandlab.com, I guess it is. I'll just give 5 more seconds for that. Now, once you're there, you want to go to the Explore icon. Let me actually do this at the same time so I'm sure I'm giving you the right advice. Yeah, go to the Explore icon, which looks like the Safari icon, right? It's a circle with a little like compass icon inside. And then in the search icon, or sorry, in the search field, type in the @ symbol and write my username BOOBOOK. Okay, when you found my, so ideally right now you should be on my account and you'll see my library where you can access the stuff that I have, right? So I've made 4 four projects. They're all labeled YS for Youth Symphony, C major group improv, test, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're 1, click on the test 1, and then 2, 3, 4, obviously click on that track. And then you want to fork that track. Okay, so you choose the fork option, and you should have your own version of that track once you do that. Anybody encountering any issues with that so far?
There's a test one that's 15 minutes long and one that's 2 minutes. Should we just use the 2-minute one?
Yes, definitely. Use the 2-minute one. The 15-minute one is the one I've already messed with that I just showed you guys. Sorry. All of you on number 1, use the 2-minute one. I'm sorry about that. That makes it confusing. It actually doesn't matter. If you use the wrong one, it really doesn't matter. The real purpose here is to practice recording a track to this test track. Okay, so once you've chosen it and done the fork option, you should open it in the audio editor. Everyone have the project now opened in their audio editor? So you see like basically what you saw kind of on my shared screen? Okay, next thing to do, create a new track by pressing the plus button. Okay, so on the sort of left of the screen, you should see a little plus for a new track. And you want to create an audio track with a mic. That's the option you'll select. So I think it says voice or mic or audio, something like that. We all there? Okay. So now, right now we're not going to worry about what you're about to do is a test. It's not going to be this has nothing to do with the final project we're going to create this week. Okay, this will essentially be discarded, so you don't have to worry if this sounds good or you like it or anything. Basically, you're just going to do something kind of like what you just did while I played the track. Okay, so what you want to do is get yourself connected to the device, even if that means disconnecting your audio from me speaking to you. Please wait for a second before you do that. And when you're ready, you're going to press record and record anywhere from, we'll say like 10 to 15 seconds of audio of just you playing in C major along with the track. But try to end in here's a key here. Try to end in an intentional way. So if you heard me play like some of those little tracks, I was like, dee da 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 bum ba da dee da 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 da, and I stop. Try to like end in an intentional way where you can decide for yourself that yes, that's the end of my little segment that I played. Okay, so now please take, we'll say 2 minutes, even though you're only going to record 10 to 15 seconds just to do any kind of transition you need to do. And when you're ready, press the record button. It doesn't matter what beat you start recording at all, as long as you come in within the first, let's say, measure and a half or so, and record a short segment. Okay, so please do that now. Folks, when you finish, please give a thumbs up in the participation section, just so I know you're done. It's best if you leave them up just so I can count everyone who's done. Just going to say again, when you're finished, please give a thumbs up through the participation menu, just so I know. Okay, yeah. So I'm having some problems here, guys, because I can't tell if you're done or not because most of you are off camera. So, and only about 8 of you have put your thumbs up. So if you're done, maybe just like come on camera or just let me know. Cool, please just stay on until like I can get a sense that most people are done. Thank you. Great, we're getting there. Thank you. So just to repeat, I've just asked if you could, if you finished, if you could come on camera briefly, or actually for just like a minute or so I can just see who's finished. All right, getting closer. Closer and closer. Yeah, almost there. I'll say again, just for anyone just coming off mic from recording, if you could come on camera when you finish, just so I know everyone who's done, so I can make sure everyone gets the next instruction. Yes, we're getting there. I love it. Plus, y'all, it's good to see your faces. Oh my God. You know what? I think I'll take this moment to say, while I can see all of you, because it's so lovely to see your faces, I want to tell you some good news. It's really good news. So you probably saw this in the news if you've been following what's been happening in terms of California educational politics, I suppose. UC has announced that we're coming back to in-person instruction in the fall. And what that potentially means for us is that, one, it's a sign that in general instruction might be in person in the fall. You might already know that from your individual schools. But two, UC Santa Cruz is the place we traditionally perform in the fall. And so maybe there's a possibility we perform there this fall, all together in the recital hall. If that happens, I want to be quick to say it probably would be with no live audience, but going over a live stream. Nonetheless, we would be together on stage in a really good recital hall, performing as an orchestra for the first time in, gosh, a year and a half or so. So that feels really good to me to think about that, and I hope it does to you too. I'm super excited about it, and just about getting out of this remote instruction thing and getting back to making music the way we normally do. Because I'm a conductor, not a not a sound engineer, and not a remote teacher by trade. But this has been a really special and new experience for me, and it hasn't been unpleasant. But I want to make music together, as I'm sure you do too. Jack says, will there be a possibility of late summer performance we can play together before seniors graduate? That's a really interesting question, Jack. I mean, I'm happy to entertain that. I don't know, but that's a good idea, and we can look at that for sure. Okay, thank you everyone for coming on camera. I appreciate it. If you want to, you can drop off again, but please listen carefully to what I'm about to say. So now we get to the part where you learn how to do the looping, if you haven't done this already on BandLab. So this is complicated, and let me demonstrate it first on Share. It's not really complicated. It is just like the first time you do it, it's a new thing that might be a little bit, yeah.
We did this. We learned tracks like I think at our like very first meeting. So for most of us, I think it's not totally new.
I think you're right, Jack. But probably also for most people, you haven't actually used it, or maybe like some people experimented with it once, and then also we have a couple of new players. So let me just add a track to this thing that I've just done here. And do some noodling on this little thing. So when you go to play, this is also important, guys. You have a built-in click track in this track up here, okay? So when you go to play, you'll have a built-in click track on your track that you receive. So listen carefully to it. Right, so it's giving you that beat. But BandLab can also play you a count-in here. And you can say count in 1 bar. That means that before you even play the first bar, it will give you 4 counts in, like this. And then you'd be at the first bar, right? So when you create your new track, I should redo this. When you create your new track, it's a voice mic track. Okay? So now we're on your track and you're about to record. This looks different when you're in the app, I should say. It will just open up to this open window that's just this track. But basically you're ready to record. And if in the app under the settings, and there you have to select the settings icon, you can choose the click in. Then you can record, and I'm just going to noodle on the piano a little bit just right now. Oops, sorry. I just started playing on the wrong key because I was thinking like a trumpet player. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Okay, so I've just done this thing. Unfortunately, I almost made it perfectly 8 measures long, which is kind of inconvenient. But let's just say I've done this thing and I want to make it exactly 8, well, we'll say 9 measures long, 8 full measures long. So I have this track selected right now, and as you go either in the app or in the browser, you'll see these 2 icons, one up top and one below. And in your app version, these will come up when you tap this block of sound. This icon is for creating a loop. And this icon is for either making this section longer or shorter. Okay, so this is essentially cropping. If you use that icon, the cropping icon, it will snap to a measure. So now it is exactly 8 measures long. And if I then touch the looping icon and drag it, it will start looping exactly what I've done before. So all of this will just be recreated in a loop as far as I drag it. Okay? So when we hear what I just played, and I'm soloing it now so you hear just that and this track. So that starts again here and here, etc. So as we listen to it with everything, so the point that you need to remember is whether you're in the browser or in the app, you select the bit that you've played. I'm just going to go back and retake this back to where we started. You select the bit that you've played, and you'll get either here and here, or in the app version, kind of above this little square, you'll get these same options, the little repeat icon or the crop icon. You drag it to exactly a measure. This is an important step, okay? You want to make sure that this goes to one exact measure. So you see, I don't even know if you can see this in my shared screen, these little faint lines that show you the beats. So you can actually, I should clarify, you can drag it to an exact measure or to an exact beat, right? I could drag it to this beat here, and you'd have some empty space, but then it would start to repeat that same bit and have the empty space at the end. Okay, so I've talked for a while. What I want you to do now is go back to the recording that you made, and I want you to do 2 steps. One is to select the recording that you've just done. In your app, it would be by tapping on that rectangle. In the browser version, if you're using a computer, it's by selecting or clicking on that rectangle. And then I want you to take the crop icon and drag it to either a beat after you finished or a measure after you finished. It's totally up to you because this is kind of part of the fun of making it random. Just make sure that it ends exactly on a beat. If that doesn't make sense, feel free to ask a question. The easiest way to do it is just to drag it to the nearest beat after you finished, or the nearest measure after you finished. Either one of those options is fine. Once you've done that, I would like you to then, in the app version, tap that again, or in the browser version, select that again, and then select the little kind of circular arrow. And in the browser version, you'll simply drag that loop as far as you want. So let's say like 10 iterations, 10 repetitions of it, something like that. In the app version, it will ask you for a number of times you want to repeat it. And it'll say 2, 4, 8, 16. So you could select 8, for example. And then what you should see is that it has repeated your bit that you've created that number of times, or if you've dragged it out the number of times that you selected by dragging it. So once you've done that, please rewind to the beginning of your recording and listen to what it sounds like to hear your fragment played. And the important thing to note here, really important, is that when it comes back, if you've started exactly on a measure number with your loop, it should still be on the beat, just maybe on a different beat. In other words, it should still feel like you're playing in the beat. It might just be moved to a different beat if you didn't start on exactly the same beat that you started the first time around. So just go ahead and listen to it as you've created your loop. Okay. Did it work? Let me put it this way. Did it not work for anybody? Okay. So now you know how to make a loop track. And what I would like you to do this week is combine with a bunch of other people in your group and create a composition together using looping. And so essentially, I'm going to send you, well, not essentially, literally, I'm going to send you the exact same track you've just listened to. And I'm going to ask you guys to put together for each one of you, anywhere between a 2 and 4 measure loop. And you just saw the examples that I gave where I just played anywhere between 2 and 4 measures of just like little short melodies. Don't overthink it. It could be something really simple, like 2 notes that you alternate between, or 4 notes that you play in a scale that repeats itself. The important thing is that it's something that you find beautiful and that you think would be really interesting to repeat in these unusual rhythmic intervals. Your job is to not repeat at the same intervals. If everyone plays 8 bars and has 8 bars repeat, that would be really boring. So don't start on beat 1. Don't end on beat 16. Just start within the first measure and a half, end within the last 2 to 4 or 5 measures, and then loop that for the rest of the time of the project, which is going to be about 2 minutes. And that's what you're going to do. So what I'd like to do right now, you know what? I think that my vision is not going to be realized because it's taken a little longer than I thought to work through this. Okay. In that case, here is your final instruction. I'm going to send to you a new version of this test version that I just did. And it'll just, instead of saying test, it'll say C major, U Symphony C major improv group 1. No test. So I'll send in an email, links to 4 versions of this, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. You can copy the link, or you can go to the link and fork the revision just as you have. So over the course of this week, please add to that revision your improvisation and your looped version of it for the full. These are about 2 minutes long. These little excerpts, and then we'll see next week what they sound like. Okay, this is just a first step towards like developing some improvisational chops and doing some improv together and hearing what the result sounds like. So if you want to make yours longer than 4 measures, it can be 5, 6 measures, whatever you want. Just only making sure that it ends at the end of the piece, which you'll see in terms of the end of the recorded segment that I share with you. I think it seems clear that everyone has understood how to do the looping assignment that I've described. Putting it together with others in BandLab can be a little bit confusing at first. Just understand that it's crucial that you create a new track when you start recording. Okay, it could be easy to just like load up the project and press record, and if you haven't created a new track, you're actually potentially recording over somebody else. So make sure that you create a new track, and then just do the steps that we've done just now. And I think you'll be excited about it. I mean, that thing that I made this afternoon, I just did in about 30 minutes, and it sounds, okay. And I think you guys will sound a lot better. I would just say, think about something like a phrase that you develop, instead of just laying something down. Listen to it a few times, play something a few times, find something you really like. And maybe it can have a few hard attacks and a few, not heart attacks, hard attacks, or a few, legato notes, or maybe it just wants to be a slow descending phrase. But everything about it should be as distinctive as possible, Like think that each note or each measure or each phrase will be distinctive to bring it out of the texture of everything else. And I think this might be really exciting to listen to next week. Does that all make sense? Understanding that I'll send an email to sort of like enumerate these steps for you. Jake. Good one. Yes. Okay, so just to sum up, your assignment for next week it's hefty. It's to do the recording from letter B in Brahms through the repeat, and then to do this other assignment that actually is just like 20 seconds of music, but we just need to make sure that we kind of follow the instructions to make sure that comes through. I really ask that you make sure that you do both of these things so that we stay on track. I hope it's not too much. We can talk about it next week if it feels like it is. But I'm heartened that so many of you finished your work last week, and I'm grateful for it. So looking forward to continuing it next week and seeing what some of these projects sound like. Thank you so much. And if there are no further questions, I'm going to say goodnight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.
Good night. All right.
You did it. Yes, I'm glad you're sending an email because I didn't follow the second project well enough to paraphrase it for you.
I wouldn't expect you to, Jerry. I mean, that was
Okay.
terribly complicated. But they did the steps, so I hope that it will have been. This was something I wouldn't dare do just like by sending them instructions for how to do it, even though we kind of got into it a little bit last set. So I wanted to spend the time tonight because we're preparing to do that thing with Hannah, and I want that to go well. So I want them to understand how to do this stuff.
So just a couple quick questions.
Sure.
somebody from Cabrillo Music Festival emailed me to ask if there's some way the Youth Symphony could have a partnership with them. They're having a virtual festival this summer. And she wanted, her name is Tamra Liu, and she wanted me to meet with her on Zoom. And we're meeting on Wednesday. And I said I'd be happy to talk to her. But I thought I'd ask you if you had any, off the top of your head, any ideas of how we could collaborate with them.
I mean, that's a meeting I would really actually like to attend because I feel that
Yeah.
would there's a lot of exciting possibilities there. But that said, Wednesday I have classes. So what time is the meeting?
We set it up for 11 on Wednesday.
Perfect. I can do that.
You can do it. Okay. So I'll tell Tamara that you're going to join us. And I'll have her send you the link.
Great.
Perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to start contacting coaches tomorrow. And I just wanted to know if you had any requests.
You know, for the strings, any of our usual people would work well. I love it when Richard Roper works with the brass. I think he does a great job.
Yeah, I was going to contact him. So the thing about the scores is, so I have 2 copies, printed copies of the Brahms score, and I have the digital copy of the Cowell score. And I guess I can give them the printed and the digital, or should I scan the Brahms and give them both in digital form?
That's
Richard lives right near me, so he lives right downtown, so I could easily give him the printed score for Brahms and then get it back from him.
is the scanning a pain?
Well, I don't know how you did it so fast. The Brahms score is 31 pages, and I have a flatbed scanner, and I could scan the pages one by one.
It wasn't that fast. I mean, honestly, I used my cell phone. There's a very good app to do a very sort of tedious job, which is called Cam Scanner, and it uses your cell phone to create scans. I don't, since you already have a scanner, I don't think it would be more useful to you than your scanner. But the one thing where it does come in handy is if you have unusual size scores. Basically, what you're doing is just centering your phone, you know, in some sort of like correct orientation above the score, taking a picture. And the really, really convenient thing about it is that it detects by color change the outsides of the page.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, let's say, just taking pictures like I did of the score on the floor, it knows when the carpet changes color that it should just crop to the outside of the white page. So in that way, if you're trying to scan something that is, let's say, legal size,
Mm-hmm.
it can detect that, and just when you take the picture, it will automatically kind of suggest the outsides of the page, as opposed to trying to do legal size copying on your scanner. That might be really inconvenient.
Okay. I think my scanner can do legal size. But the thing I wonder about is, okay, so Richard gets the scan of the 30-page score, and it's not very big.
Right. Yeah, I guess the question is that requires him to print it out. So I guess it would be, I guess, sort of incumbent upon us to provide him with the printed score, because it would be a lot to ask him to print it out. If it's at all possible for us to give him a printed score, that probably would be the right
That
thing
kind
to
of
do.
like it affects who I hire, because
I
Richard
see.
is right downtown. And I know you like Bruce Foster for the woodwinds, but he's out of town.
Uh-huh.
So maybe it would be okay to hire somebody like Lars to do the woodwinds.
Lars would be fine. Lars
We
would be
had
great.
Jeff last time, and I
The
don't know.
only reason that I prefer Bruce over Lars and it has nothing to do with how good Lars is because Bruce has more conducting experience. But we're not in, we're in remote teaching now, so Lars could be great.
I mean, I can ask Bruce and tell him about the logistical problem and see what he says. Okay.
I think it's totally fine to ask Lars. I think that would be perfectly great to ask him.
And he also lives within a few blocks of where I live. So
Yeah, I love Lars. I mean, I think he's wonderful. Ideally, as I say, the only reason I sometimes prefer Bruce is that he plays a wider variety of reed instruments and has more conducting experience. So when we're in person, in some ways, it makes sense for him. But that it's
right.
Lars is wonderful.
The thing is that these people who are usually not available, and Bruce is one of them, are probably available now. So I'm actually going to ask Cynthia to coach the violins. She's never available because of the San Jose Opera, but this
Yeah,
year I think she is available. So
yeah, that sounds great.
okay, so that's fine. The only other thing on my list here is just a reminder, and I'm going to remind you later that you still have 2 scores from our library. And they are Tchaikovsky's Sleeping Beauty, which you looked at, but we didn't play,
Right.
and the Mussorgsky Great Gate score. So I'm going to keep moving that note forward because you don't need to come to Santa Cruz. Oh, there's Great Gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we meet again, you can return those anytime, right?
Sure. That
Trying to
sounds
figure
good.
out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's really good news about UCSC. I
Oh
read.
my God, I couldn't be happier about that. I mean, God, I just almost cried when I saw that. I have to say, I don't really know what's going to happen because with my classes, I mean, the whole reason that it is a joyful experience for me is that I assume that means that we'll be meeting in person again. But I do know that UCSC is kind of being mindful about how many people can be in a room at the same time, especially if they're breathing with choir and orchestra. So I I don't really know what it means for me, and I assume that we'd be performing in an empty concert hall, just live streamed. But I think that's another big benefit for whether if we can get the recital hall in the fall, they'll have the utility built in to live stream us. So just by performing there, we can instantly be online playing for as many people as tune in. And if we're anywhere else, we're not really sure how we can have an audience. So I'll be trying to sort of convince the board that that will be our best option for the fall.
So it's probably too early to contact. What is the manager's name?
Oh,
Man.
it's Dave, and I'm gonna actually talk to him tomorrow. So I'm gonna be trying to. Maybe we should actually talk about this for a second right now.
I
I'm gonna.
think I should turn off the recording. Sorry, I forgot to turn it off.
Oh, that's okay.